Beloved, before the sun fully stretches its golden fingers across the morning sky, before the noise of the world begins to crowd your spirit, there is a sacred invitation waiting for you today. It is the gentle whisper of God calling your weary heart into stillness, calling your anxious thoughts into peace, and calling your wandering soul back into divine alignment. This Thursday morning is not an accident. You did not wake up by chance. Heaven has already prepared mercy for your mistakes, strength for your weakness, and purpose for every step you will take today. Some of us woke up carrying burdens too heavy for human hands. Some hearts are bruised from silent battles no one else can see. Some minds are crowded with questions about tomorrow, fears about provision, and uncertainty about the road ahead. But God, in His endless wisdom, does not ask you to carry the whole future at once. He asks only that you trust Him with this day, this breath, this moment. When your heart is anchored in God, storms may rise, but they cannot destroy you. When your day is aligned with His purpose, confusion loses its power, fear loosens its grip, and even delays begin to work for your good. The world may shift like sand beneath your feet, but the promises of God remain steady as a mountain unmoved by the wind. Today, let this prayer become more than words spoken into the air. Let it become a surrender. Let it become a holy conversation between your soul and the Creator who knows your name, your tears, your dreams, and your hidden pain. God is not distant from you this morning. He walks beside you in every unanswered prayer, every closed door, every difficult decision, and every fragile hope you carry in silence. Do not rush into this Thursday with panic in your spirit. Do not allow yesterday's disappointments to poison today's possibilities. The God who carried you through dark nights is the same God who will guide you through this day with wisdom, favor, and peace. His purpose for your life has not been canceled by your failures, delayed by your struggles, or weakened by your fears. So breathe deeply, child of God. Lay your worries at His feet. Open your heart to His direction. And as this morning prayer begins, may your soul find rest, your mind find clarity, and your spirit find the courage to walk boldly in the purpose God has prepared for you today. There are mornings when the soul wakes before the body does. Mornings when your eyes open but your spirit still feels wrapped in yesterday's sorrow. The room may be quiet, yet inside your chest there is thunder. Questions rise like restless waves. Fear knocks against your peace. Memories of disappointment sit heavy upon your shoulders like wet garments worn too long in the rain. And in those moments, beloved, the heart goes searching for something steady enough to hold on to. The world will offer many anchors. It will tell you to anchor yourself in money, though money can vanish. It will tell you to anchor yourself in people, though people are imperfect and sometimes leave without warning. It will tell you to anchor yourself in success, beauty, applause, and achievement. But every earthly thing has a season, and seasons change. What once looked strong can crumble overnight. What once sounded certain can become silent by morning. But God remains. He remains when doors close. He remains when prayers seem delayed. He remains when friends misunderstand your tears, and when life shifts beneath your feet without permission. He remains the same through every storm, every valley, every sleepless night, and every uncertain dawn. And when your heart is anchored in Him, you begin to understand that peace is not the absence of trouble. Peace is the presence of God standing beside you in the middle of it. Some people think strength means never trembling. They think faith means never questioning. But even the strongest hearts grow tired. Even faithful souls sometimes wrestle with fear. There are moments when life presses against you so hard that you can feel your courage bending beneath the weight of it all. Yet an anchored heart does not mean you never sway in the wind. It means you do not drift away when the winds begin to howl. God never promised that storms would not come. He promised that they would not destroy you. And storms come in many forms. Sometimes they arrive as grief sitting quietly at the kitchen table where laughter used to live. Sometimes they arrive as unpaid bills, broken relationships, or dreams delayed so long they begin to ache inside your chest. Sometimes the storm is invisible to everyone else. A private sadness, a hidden anxiety, a silent battle fought behind polite smiles and tired eyes. Still, God sees. He sees the tears you wiped away before anyone noticed. He sees the nights you lay awake trying to hold yourself together while the world around you slept peacefully. He sees the courage it took for you to keep going when your spirit felt exhausted. Heaven pays attention to the battles fought in silence, and perhaps this is why anchoring your heart in God matters so deeply. Because human strength alone is too fragile for life's hardest seasons. There comes a moment when intelligence cannot fix the pain, when money cannot purchase peace, and when even the voices of loved ones cannot quiet the storm within. Only God can reach the places inside you that no human hand can touch. An anchored heart learns to rest in truths greater than temporary feelings. Feelings change with circumstances. One moment you feel hopeful, and the next moment fear whispers disaster into your thoughts. But God's truth remains stable when emotions rise and fall like tides upon the shore. When your heart is anchored in Him, you stop allowing panic to become your compass. You stop letting fear make your decisions. You begin to breathe differently, walk differently, speak differently. There is a quiet confidence born inside a soul that has learned where its help truly comes from. That confidence is not arrogance, it is trust. It is the kind of trust that says, even if I do not understand this season, God is still leading me. It is the kind of trust that stands in the middle of uncertainty and declares, I may feel weak today, but my Father in heaven is strong enough for both of us. It is the kind of trust that wipes tears from weary eyes and still finds the courage to whisper, Lord, I believe you are working even now. The anchored heart does not deny pain. It simply refuses to let pain become its master. There will be voices around you telling you to give up hope. Voices reminding you of every mistake, every failure, every delayed prayer. The enemy of your peace delights in speaking the language of fear. He wants your mind crowded with doubt and your spirit chained to discouragement. But God speaks another language. He speaks life into dry places. He speaks peace into troubled waters. He speaks hope into hearts that have nearly forgotten how to dream again. And sometimes His voice comes softly, not in thunder, not in spectacle, but in the quiet assurance that rises within your soul when you have prayed through your tears and surrendered your burdens into His hands. A holy whisper reminding you that you are not abandoned. A sacred stillness reminding you that heaven is closer than you think. Beloved, there is power in stillness. The world teaches people to rush into decisions, rush into worry, rush into despair before God has even finished writing the story. But an anchored heart learns to wait upon the Lord. It learns that panic creates confusion while prayer creates clarity. It learns that God often does His deepest work beneath the surface where human eyes cannot yet see. A tree with shallow roots falls quickly when strong winds arrive. But a tree whose roots stretch deep into the earth can survive seasons that would destroy weaker things. So it is with the human spirit. Hearts rooted deeply in God develop endurance. They learn how to survive betrayal without becoming bitter. They learn how to endure hardship without losing compassion. They learn how to walk through disappointment without surrendering faith. And that kind of strength is beautiful. Not loud, not boastful, but beautiful in the quiet way sunrise is beautiful after a long and terrible night. Perhaps you have spent too much time anchoring your heart to things that could not hold you. Perhaps you trusted people who failed you. Perhaps you built your peace upon circumstances that changed without warning. Perhaps life has left you feeling unsteady, exhausted from trying to control everything around you. Then let this morning become a turning point. Lay your fears before God. Lay your disappointments there too. Lay down the pressure to have every answer, every solution, every tomorrow perfectly planned. You were never meant to carry the weight of the entire world upon your shoulders. Some burdens only God can hold properly, and He holds them well. He holds broken hearts with tenderness. He holds weary souls with mercy. He holds uncertain futures with wisdom beyond human understanding. Even now, while you worry about tomorrow, God is already standing in tomorrow, preparing grace for your arrival. That is why you can rest, not because life is easy, but because God is faithful. An anchored heart remembers this when the doctor's report brings fear. It remembers this when opportunities disappear. It remembers this when loneliness creeps quietly into the corners of the day. It remembers this when prayers seem unanswered and heaven feels silent. Faith does not mean you always feel strong. Faith means you continue trusting God even when strength feels far away. And little by little, something sacred begins to happen inside you. Your mind becomes calmer, your spirit becomes steadier. The things that once shattered your peace no longer have the same power over you. You begin to understand that God's presence is greater than your circumstances, greater than your fears, greater than your pain. The storm may still rage around you, but it no longer reigns within you. And one day you will look back over the road you survived and realize that God was anchoring you all along. In every heartbreak that taught you wisdom, in every delay that protected you from unseen harm, in every lonely season that pulled you closer to His voice. What felt like abandonment was often preparation. What felt like silence was often God building strength in hidden places. So this morning, anchor your heart in the one who cannot fail. When fear rises, anchor yourself in His promises. When uncertainty comes, anchor yourself in His wisdom. When sorrow knocks at your door, anchor yourself in His comfort. And when life feels too heavy for your weary hands, remember that God has never asked you to carry it alone. He is your refuge in the storm. He is your peace in the chaos. He is your steady ground when everything else begins to shake. And if you hold on to Him, beloved, no storm in this life will ever be powerful enough to sweep your soul away. Every morning arrives carrying a question from heaven. Before the noise of the world begins its endless shouting, before schedules tighten around your neck like ropes pulled too hard, before responsibilities come knocking at the door of your attention, God quietly asks, "Will you walk with me today?" It is a simple question, yet it carries the weight of an entire life. For many people rise from their beds already burdened. Their minds rush ahead into tomorrow's worries before their feet even touch the floor. Anxiety becomes the first voice they hear. Fear becomes the first companion they follow. They begin the day chasing control, trying to force certainty from a world that changes like shifting wind, and by noon their spirits are already exhausted from carrying battles they were never meant to fight alone. But divine alignment changes the rhythm of the soul. To begin your day aligned with God is to pause long enough to remember who truly orders your steps. It is to understand that before you belong to your job, your obligations, your fears, or even your plans, you belong to God. Your life is not an accident stumbling blindly through chaos. There is purpose attached to your breath. There is meaning stitched into your existence by hands far wiser than human understanding. And when you wake each morning and place your day into God's care, something holy begins to settle over your spirit. The world teaches people to begin their mornings with hurry, rush to the phone, rush to the news, rush to the deadlines, waiting impatiently for attention. Yet the soul was never created to thrive in constant chaos. Human beings can move quickly while their spirits slowly starve inside them. They can achieve success outwardly while inwardly becoming disconnected from peace, from purpose, and from God Himself. Divine alignment calls you back to center. It reminds you that prayer is not merely a religious habit squeezed between obligations. Prayer is breath for the weary soul. Prayer is where confusion loses its authority and clarity quietly enters the room. Prayer is where trembling hearts remember that God still sits upon the throne, untouched by human panic and unmoved by earthly storms. There is something sacred about offering God the first moments of your day. Before the world tells you who to be, God reminds you who you are. Before fear has a chance to plant seeds of discouragement, God whispers strength into your spirit. Before problems begin demanding solutions, heaven offers peace greater than understanding. And perhaps this is why the enemy fights hardest for your attention in the morning. Distraction is powerful because it slowly disconnects the soul from divine direction. A distracted spirit wanders into the day unguarded. It reacts emotionally instead of responding wisely. It chases urgency while neglecting purpose. But alignment with God creates discernment. It sharpens your ability to recognize what deserves your energy and what merely drains your peace. Beloved, not every open door is meant for you. Not every opportunity carries God's blessing. Not every voice speaking loudly deserves authority over your life. Some paths glitter beautifully at first and still lead toward emptiness. Some decisions feel exciting in the moment, yet slowly pull the heart away from peace. This is why divine alignment matters. Because when your heart is surrendered to God, you stop measuring life only by what looks appealing. You begin asking deeper questions. Does this bring me closer to God's purpose? Does this strengthen my spirit or weaken it? Does this decision create peace within me or confusion? Alignment teaches the soul how to listen. And God often speaks softly, not always through dramatic signs or thunderous miracles. Sometimes he speaks to an uneasy feeling, warning you not to proceed. Sometimes he speaks through unexpected stillness. Sometimes he speaks through scripture that suddenly feels alive with personal meaning. Sometimes he speaks through delays that frustrate you today but protect you tomorrow. There are seasons when unanswered prayers are actually divine mercy wearing unfamiliar clothing. Yet people struggle with this truth because human beings naturally crave control. They want detailed maps for every season of life. They want certainty before taking steps of faith. But God often reveals direction one step at a time, teaching his children to depend upon him daily rather than relying solely upon their own understanding. And dependence is not weakness. The world may praise self-sufficiency, but the soul grows strongest when it recognizes its need for God. A river disconnected from its source eventually dries into cracked earth. So it is with the human spirit. Without divine connection, people become spiritually thirsty, no matter how much worldly success they gather around themselves. You can possess achievement and still lack peace. You can have applause and still feel empty. You can smile publicly while silently breaking within. But alignment with God nourishes the hidden places inside you that no earthly thing can satisfy. It teaches you that purpose is greater than popularity, that obedience matters more than appearance, that a quiet life lived close to God carries more beauty than a loud life spent chasing approval from people who cannot heal your soul. Some mornings alignment requires surrender, surrendering bitterness before it poisons your thoughts, surrendering pride before it blinds your judgment, surrendering fear before it convinces you to abandon your calling. There are burdens many people carry into each day that God never intended for them to hold. Old wounds, past failures, regret heavy as chains wrapped around the heart. Yet God does not invite you into alignment to condemn you. He invites you into alignment to restore you. His mercies arrive fresh every morning because he understands the human condition. He knows people grow weary. He knows they stumble. He knows there are nights when tears soak pillows and mornings when courage feels difficult to find. Still, his grace rises with the dawn, patient and faithful. And what a beautiful thing it is to know that every sunrise carries another chance to begin again, another chance to forgive, another chance to trust, another chance to walk differently than yesterday. Divine alignment does not mean perfection. It means direction. It means choosing again and again to place your heart before God and ask him to guide your thoughts, your words, your decisions, and your desires. It means inviting heaven into ordinary moments, the commute to work, the difficult conversation, the silent struggle nobody else sees. Alignment transforms even common moments into sacred opportunities for God to move through your life. And slowly over time you begin to notice changes within yourself. You react with more patience where anger once ruled quickly. You speak with more kindness where bitterness once lived. You stop panicking over every uncertainty because you begin trusting that God's hand is already at work behind scenes invisible to human eyes. This trust does not always arrive suddenly. Often it grows quietly through experience. You remember the prayers God answered when hope felt lost. You remember the seasons he carried you through when you thought you would surely break. You remember doors he closed that later proved harmful. And memory becomes evidence that God has been faithful all along. Beloved, divine alignment is not about making God follow your plans. It is about trusting him enough to follow his. And sometimes his plans stretch the soul beyond comfort. Sometimes they require waiting when you want immediate answers. Sometimes they require courage when fear would rather remain hidden. But every step guided by God carries purpose even when the destination remains unclear. A seed buried beneath soil probably feels forgotten in darkness. Yet hidden beneath the earth, transformation is already happening. Roots are forming. Growth is beginning quietly where nobody can yet see it. So it is with many seasons of life. What appears stagnant may actually be preparation orchestrated by God himself. That is why alignment matters more than speed. Some people run quickly toward destinations never meant for them. Others walk slowly yet remain within the will of God, and peace travels beside them like faithful company. This morning, beloved, before you rush into another day carrying your worries like stones in tired hands, pause long enough to invite God into your steps. Ask him for wisdom before making decisions. Ask him for patience before frustration rises. Ask him for strength before challenges appear. Ask him for eyes able to recognize divine opportunities hidden within ordinary moments. For when your day begins with God, your spirit walks differently through the world. Not because problems disappear, not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because your soul remembers it does not walk alone. The same God who paints dawn across the sky with gentle brilliance is the same God capable of guiding your life with wisdom and love. The same God who holds oceans within boundaries is able to hold your fragile heart steady through uncertainty. The same God who has carried generations through storms is still faithful enough to carry you today. So begin this day aligned with heaven. Let prayer steady your spirit before fear speaks. Let gratitude awaken your heart before complaints arise. Let God's truth shape your thoughts before the world fills them with noise. And as you walk into this Thursday morning, may your soul remain centered not in panic, not in pressure, not in human approval, but in the quiet and powerful presence of God who lovingly directs every surrendered step. Human beings are dreamers by nature. We build futures in our minds before life is even unfolded. We imagine how love should arrive, how success should appear, how doors should open, and how quickly prayers ought to be answered. We make careful plans and draw invisible maps across tomorrow, believing that if we hold tightly enough to our expectations, life will unfold according to our desires. And then life happens. A door closes without warning. A prayer waits longer than expected. A relationship changes shape. A season arrives carrying grief instead of celebration. Suddenly the plans we held so carefully in our hands begin slipping through our fingers like grains of sand caught in restless wind. And there, in the middle of disappointment, many hearts begin asking painful questions. God, where are you? Why did this happen? Why would you allow my path to change when I prayed so sincerely? But beloved, there is a painful truth and a beautiful truth woven together inside every surrendered life. The painful truth is this: human plans are limited. The beautiful truth is this: God's purpose is not. God sees what human eyes cannot see. He sees the road ahead, while we see only the next few trembling steps before us. He sees dangers hidden behind attractive opportunities. He sees blessings concealed inside painful delays. He sees the people we will become if we trust Him through seasons we do not yet understand. And perhaps the greatest struggle of faith is learning to trust God's purpose, even when it interrupts our carefully arranged plans. Because people often want God's blessings without God's direction. They want success without surrender. They want certainty without dependence. But God is not merely trying to give you what you asked for. He is shaping your character, strengthening your spirit, and preparing your soul for a purpose greater than temporary comfort. There are prayers you once prayed that God lovingly refused because He knew what your limited understanding could not yet comprehend. At the time, rejection felt cruel. Delay felt like abandonment. Silence felt unbearable. Yet later, with wiser eyes and a humbler heart, you looked back and realized God had protected you from paths that would have wounded you deeply. Sometimes unanswered prayers are heaven's rescue. Sometimes delays are divine preparation. Sometimes closed doors are acts of mercy. But human hearts struggle to accept this because disappointment hurts. There is no gentle way to describe the ache of watching a cherished dream crumble before your eyes. It hurts to invest hope into something that never arrives. It hurts when the future you imagine disappears and leaves you standing in unfamiliar territory wondering what comes next. Still, God remains faithful even in the ruins of broken expectation. And often it is there, among shattered plans, that His deeper purpose begins to reveal itself. The world teaches people to measure success by visible achievement. Bigger houses, louder applause, faster victories. But God measures differently. He looks beyond appearances into the hidden places of the soul. He values humility when pride would be easier. He honors obedience when rebellion feels tempting. He treasures faithfulness in quiet seasons no one else notices. There are some lessons the soul can only learn through waiting. Waiting teaches dependence. Waiting teaches patience. Waiting strips away the illusion that human beings are fully in control of their lives. And control is something people cling to desperately. They hold tightly to schedules, outcomes, expectations, and timelines because uncertainty frightens them. Yet faith often requires loosening your grip on what you wanted, so your hands become open enough to receive what God intends. That surrender is not weakness. It is trust matured through fire. A child trusts the parent holding their hand even when they do not understand the direction of the journey. In the same way, trusting God's purpose means believing His wisdom exceeds your own understanding. It means accepting that heaven's perspective stretches farther than human sight could ever reach. Beloved, God is not confused about your life. Even when you feel lost, He is not lost. Even when doors close unexpectedly, He is not surprised. Even when your plans collapse, His purpose remains standing. What comforts me about God is that He wastes nothing. Not your tears, not your heartbreak, not your waiting seasons, not even your failures. Human beings often see ruined chapters where God sees material for redemption. He can take pain and transform it into compassion. He can take loss and birth wisdom from it. He can take brokenness and create testimony strong enough to help heal someone else. That is the mystery of divine purpose. Sometimes the very season you beg God to remove becomes the season that changes you forever. Not because suffering itself is beautiful, but because God is powerful enough to bring beauty out of suffering. Like a skilled artist gathering shattered pieces of stained glass and shaping them into something breathtaking. God gathers the fragments of human lives and creates meaning where despair once lived. There are moments when trusting God feels easy, moments when prayers are answered quickly and blessings arrive like sunlight pouring through open windows. But deeper faith is formed in harder places. It is formed when heaven feels silent. It is formed when life becomes uncertain. It is formed when your spirit must choose between panic and surrender. And surrender is holy work. It is kneeling before God and saying, Lord, I do not understand this season, but I trust you inside it. It is releasing bitterness before bitterness poisons your spirit. It is believing that God remains good even when circumstances feel painful. This kind of trust changes a person. It softens anxious hearts. It quiets restless striving. It teaches the soul that peace does not come from controlling outcomes, but from knowing the one who holds all outcomes in his hands. Too many people exhaust themselves trying to force doors open that God intentionally closed. They chase relationships God warned them against. They cling to seasons God already finished. They confuse attachment with purpose and fear with wisdom. But divine purpose cannot be manipulated into existence through desperation. What God has prepared for you will not require you to destroy your peace in order to obtain it. Yes, there will be effort. Yes, there will be sacrifice. Yes, there will be seasons requiring courage. But God's purpose ultimately leads toward life, not destruction. Toward growth, not spiritual emptiness. toward peace even amid hardship. One of the hardest truths for human beings to accept is that God's timing rarely matches human urgency. People want immediate answers, while God often works slowly, deeply, and intentionally. They see delay as denial, while heaven may see preparation. A seed buried beneath dark soil probably feels forgotten. Yet hidden beneath the surface, roots are quietly growing strong enough to support future fruit. If the seed emerged too quickly, fragile roots would fail beneath the weight of storms. So God allows hidden seasons because He understands the importance of preparation. And perhaps you are in such a season now. A season where progress feels invisible. A season where prayers seem unanswered. A season where your plans no longer fit the reality before you. Do not mistake hidden growth for abandonment. God often does His greatest work where human eyes cannot yet see it. The story of your life is still being written, beloved. One painful chapter does not determine the ending. One disappointment does not cancel divine purpose. One delayed prayer does not mean heaven has forgotten your name. Trusting God's purpose also means releasing comparison. Too many souls lose their peace because they measure their journey against someone else's timeline. They watch others succeed faster, marry sooner, prosper earlier, and suddenly bitterness creeps quietly into the heart. But comparison blinds people to their own sacred path. God does not create lives by copy and paste. Each soul carries unique assignments, unique lessons, unique timing, and unique grace. What belongs to another person may not belong to you. And what God has reserved for you cannot be stolen by another soul. Rest in that truth. You do not need to force what God intends to provide. You do not need to fear missing what heaven already ordained. You do not need to panic over delays when God still governs time itself. The same God who guides stars through endless galaxies without confusion is fully capable of guiding your life with wisdom and precision. So breathe, weary heart. Release the need to understand everything immediately. Release the fear that your life is falling apart beyond repair. Sometimes things fall apart because God is building something stronger than the version you tried to hold together on your own. And one day you may look back with tearful gratitude for prayers God did not answer the way you wanted. You may thank Him for doors He closed, relationships He removed, delays He allowed, and paths He redirected. Because hindsight often reveals what faith struggled to trust in the moment. God was protecting your destiny even while your heart was grieving the loss of your plans. So this morning, place your dreams before God with open hands. Dream boldly, yes. Plan wisely, yes. Work faithfully, yes. But trust God more than you trust your own understanding. For His purpose stretches beyond temporary desires into eternal meaning. His plans are rooted not merely in comfort, but in transformation. And if you surrender your journey into His hands, He will guide you through valleys, storms, waiting seasons, and unexpected turns toward a destiny shaped by wisdom far greater than your own. And beloved, the God who holds your future has never once failed at being faithful. There are burdens the human spirit was never designed to carry forever. Yet so many people wake each morning already exhausted, not because their bodies have labored through hard work, but because their minds have wandered endlessly through fear. Anxiety is a thief that enters quietly. It steals rest from the night and joy from the morning. It whispers worst-case scenarios into tired thoughts until the soul begins trembling beneath the weight of imagined disasters. And what makes anxiety especially painful is that many battles happen in silence. People walk through crowded rooms carrying private storms nobody else can see. They smile politely while their minds race with worry. They answer questions with practiced strength while fear curls tightly around their hearts. Some are anxious about finances, some worry about children, some fear sickness, failure, rejection, loneliness, or uncertainty about tomorrow. The reasons may differ, but the ache feels familiar all the same. The human heart grows weary trying to control what only God can hold securely. There is a reason Scripture invites people to cast their cares upon the Lord. It is because anxiety slowly crushes the spirit when carried too long. Fear was never meant to become the ruler of your thoughts. Worry was never intended to govern your decisions. Yet many people unknowingly build entire lives around anxious thinking. They rehearse problems before they happen. They expect disappointment before joy even has a chance to arrive. They brace themselves for tragedy until peace feels foreign to their own souls. But beloved, God did not create you merely to survive life in constant fear. He created you to walk with peace even in uncertain seasons. Peace does not mean the absence of difficulty. It means the presence of God stronger than difficulty. It means knowing that while storms may rage around you, they do not have permission to reign within you. The sea can become violent during a storm. Waves rise, winds scream, rain crashes mercilessly against the surface. Yet deep beneath the chaos, the ocean remains calm in hidden places untouched by surface turbulence. So it is with the soul anchored in God. Life may shake the outer world, but deep within there can still exist a holy calm sustained by divine presence. And that calm begins with surrender. Not the surrender of defeat, but the surrender of trust. It is the moment a weary soul finally admits, "Lord, I cannot carry all of this alone." It is releasing the illusion that constant worrying somehow protects you from pain. Anxiety promises control, yet delivers exhaustion. It convinces people that if they think hard enough, fear deeply enough, or prepare endlessly enough, they can somehow prevent suffering from touching their lives. But human beings cannot control every outcome. No amount of worrying can add peace to tomorrow. No amount of fear can guarantee safety. No amount of panic can create wisdom. Only God can hold the future without trembling. And perhaps this is why prayer matters so deeply. Prayer interrupts anxiety. It shifts the focus of the soul away from fear and back toward faith. Prayer reminds weary hearts that there is still a God seated above every uncertainty, untouched by human panic and unmoved by earthly confusion. There is healing in speaking your worries aloud before God, not because He does not already know them, but because honesty opens the heart to divine comfort. Some people carry burdens in silence for so long that they begin believing they must solve everything alone. Yet God never asked His children to become their own saviors. He asked them to trust Him. And trust can feel frightening when life has wounded you deeply. Some people became anxious because disappointment arrived unexpectedly. Others learned fear through betrayal, heartbreak, loss, or seasons of instability. Anxiety often grows where pain once lived. The mind tries to protect the heart from future suffering by constantly searching for danger. But beloved, living in survival mode is not the same as living in peace. Fear may keep you alert, but it cannot nourish your spirit. Anxiety may make you cautious, but it cannot heal your soul. Eventually, the heart becomes tired of bracing for storms that have not even arrived. God offers another way. He offers rest for weary minds, stillness for restless thoughts, comfort for trembling hearts. And His peace does not depend upon perfect circumstances. That is what makes divine peace so powerful. Human peace often collapses when situations become difficult. But the peace of God survives hospital rooms, financial struggles, broken relationships, unanswered questions, and uncertain futures. It survives because its source is eternal. The world changes constantly. Economies shift, relationships evolve, bodies grow tired, seasons come and go. But God remains steady through every changing tide of human existence. When your peace is rooted in Him instead of temporary circumstances, you begin to understand that stability is possible even in difficult seasons. This does not happen overnight. Releasing anxiety is often daily work, sometimes hourly work. There are mornings when fear returns knocking loudly against the mind, demanding attention. There are nights when uncertainty feels heavier than faith. There are moments when tears arrive before words can even form. And still, God remains patient. He does not shame anxious hearts. He comforts them. Like a loving father kneeling beside a frightened child during a thunderstorm, God draws near to trembling souls with gentleness rather than condemnation. He understands human weakness. He understands how quickly fear can spread through the heart when life becomes uncertain. Yet again and again he whispers the same invitation throughout Scripture. Do not be afraid, not because danger never exists, but because he exists greater than danger. Beloved, there is freedom in realizing you do not have to carry tomorrow before it arrives. So many people ruin today's peace worrying about future possibilities that may never happen. Anxiety drags imaginary tragedies into present moments and demands emotional payment in advance. But today has enough grace for today. God provides strength for this moment, this breath, this step. And when tomorrow arrives, he will provide fresh mercy there too. Anxiety tries to make people live 10 days at once. Peace teaches them to trust God one day at a time. Even Jesus spoke of this wisdom when he reminded people that worrying cannot add a single hour to life. Worry consumes energy while producing no lasting solutions. It drains joy from ordinary moments that were meant to be lived fully and gratefully. How many sunsets have anxious hearts missed while replaying fears in their minds? How many blessings passed unnoticed because worry clouded the eyes? How many moments of beauty were overshadowed by dread about tomorrow? Anxiety narrows vision until people can no longer recognize the goodness still surrounding them. But peace reopens the soul. It allows gratitude to breathe again. It teaches the heart to notice small mercies, morning sunlight through curtains, laughter shared unexpectedly, strength to endure another day, the comfort of knowing God has carried you through every previous storm. And if he carried you then, beloved, he will carry you now. Sometimes peace arrives quietly, not as sudden emotional relief, but as a gradual deepening trust within the soul. A realization that no matter what happens, God will remain faithful. A confidence that even painful seasons cannot separate you from his love. A holy stillness growing stronger than fear itself. This kind of peace transforms people. They stop reacting impulsively to every frightening thought. They stop assuming disaster waits around every corner. They begin speaking hope where fear once dominated their words. Their spirits grow steadier because their trust grows deeper. And what a beautiful testimony it becomes when a soul learns how to remain peaceful in difficult times. Not because they ignore reality, but because they know reality is not greater than God. There will always be reasons to worry if you search hard enough. The world is uncertain. Human beings are fragile. Life contains unpredictability, yet faith teaches the soul to focus less upon what could go wrong and more upon who remains faithful through it all. God has already carried you through seasons you once thought would destroy you. There were nights you cried yourself to sleep and still survived. There were heartbreaks that nearly shattered your spirit and still you stand. There were moments when fear convinced you that hope was finished. Yet somehow grace found you again. That was not luck. That was God. So this morning, beloved, release the burdens tightening around your heart. Release the pressure to solve every problem immediately. Release the fear that tomorrow rests entirely upon your shoulders. Place your anxious thoughts before God one by one if necessary. Let him hold what you cannot control. Let him calm what you cannot understand. Let him steady the trembling places within your soul. And as you breathe deeply beneath heaven's watchful care, may peace settle over you like gentle rain falling upon dry and thirsty ground. May your mind grow quieter. May your spirit grow lighter. May your heart remember that no fear is greater than the God who lovingly watches over your life. For the same God who carries the stars across the night sky without fail is fully able to carry you too. There is a difference between merely moving through life and being guided through it. Many people are busy every day of their lives, rushing from task to task, decision to decision, conversation to conversation, yet still feeling lost deep within themselves. Activity is not always purpose. Motion is not always direction. A person can run quickly down the wrong road and still end up far from peace. That is why wisdom matters. Wisdom is more than intelligence. Intelligence gathers information, but wisdom understands how to live rightly with what has been learned. Intelligence may fill the mind, but wisdom steadies the soul. And obedience is the sacred bridge between hearing God's direction and actually walking in it. For there are many who pray for guidance but resist surrender. Many who ask God to lead them yet continue following only their own desires. Many who seek wisdom while ignoring the quiet conviction already placed within their hearts. Beloved, God does not merely desire to comfort your spirit. He desires to direct your steps, and direction requires listening. The world is loud now. Loud with opinions, loud with distractions, loud with endless voices demanding attention. Every day people are told what success should look like, what happiness should resemble, what goals should matter most. Society constantly pushes human beings toward comparison, performance, and hurried ambition, until many no longer recognize the sound of God's voice beneath all the noise. But wisdom often speaks softly. It arrives in moments of stillness, in prayer before dawn, in scriptures read slowly with an open heart, in the uneasy feeling warning you not to proceed down a certain path, in peace that settles gently over one decision while confusion clouds another. God does not always shout directions through thunder. Sometimes he whispers because wisdom requires hearts willing to draw near enough to hear him. And obedience begins where pride ends. Human pride wants complete understanding before taking steps of faith. Pride wants guarantees. It wants every answer mapped clearly before surrender becomes comfortable. But obedience often requires trusting God beyond what human logic can fully explain. Noah obeyed before rain had ever fallen. Abraham obeyed before seeing the promise fulfilled. Moses obeyed while standing before impossible waters. Faith has always required movement before certainty. And perhaps this is where many hearts struggle most deeply. Because obedience can feel frightening when the future remains unclear. God may ask you to leave familiar places, release unhealthy relationships, forgive painful wounds, wait patiently through delays, or walk away from opportunities that appear attractive on the surface. Wisdom recognizes God's voice. Obedience chooses to follow it even when emotions resist. Beloved, not every desire within you deserves to be followed. Some desires lead toward life. Others quietly lead to destruction. Wisdom teaches discernment. It helps the soul recognize the difference between what feels good temporarily and what is truly good eternally. The human heart can become easily deceived when emotions take control. Loneliness may tempt people into relationships God never intended. Impatience may drive them toward shortcuts that compromise integrity. Fear may convince them to abandon dreams planted by God himself. But wisdom steadies the spirit against impulsive choices. A wise person learns to pause before reacting, to pray before deciding, to seek God before speaking. And what peace enters a life no longer ruled entirely by emotion. For emotions are beautiful servants but dangerous masters. Feelings change quickly. One day courage rises strong within you, and the next day fear whispers reasons to quit. One moment anger feels justified, and the next moment regret follows careless words spoken too quickly. Wisdom teaches people not to build their lives upon unstable emotions alone. Instead, wisdom roots itself in truth. Truth that says integrity matters even when dishonesty appears easier. Truth that says kindness remains powerful in a cruel world. Truth that says obedience to God ultimately leads toward peace even when the road feels difficult at first. There are seasons when obedience costs something. Sometimes it costs popularity. Sometimes it costs comfort. Sometimes it costs temporary pleasure or immediate gratification. Yet disobedience costs far more. Too many people learn this painfully after ignoring God's warnings. They pursue relationships that wound their spirits. They chase ambitions that empty their souls. They compromise values for approval that quickly fades. Then they wonder why peace disappeared along the journey. God's instructions are not chains designed to imprison human joy. They are guardrails protecting human hearts from destruction. A loving parent warns a child away from danger, not to limit freedom but to preserve life. In the same way, God's wisdom flows from divine love. He sees consequences long before human eyes recognize them. He understands where certain roads eventually lead, even when beginnings appear harmless. And still, He allows human beings the dignity of choice. This is why obedience carries such sacred meaning. True obedience cannot be forced. It is chosen freely by hearts that trust God's goodness. It is saying, Lord, I believe your wisdom is greater than my temporary understanding. It is surrendering the need to always have things your way and trusting that God's way leads toward deeper peace. Wisdom also teaches patience. The world celebrates speed, faster success, faster recognition, faster results. But God often works slowly because lasting transformation rarely happens overnight. Trees that grow too quickly without deep roots cannot survive strong storms. So God develops endurance, humility, and wisdom gradually within the souls He loves. There are prayers you still wait to see answered, dreams still unfolding beyond your sight, doors God has not opened yet because preparation is still happening within you. Wisdom trusts timing, even when impatience grows restless. And obedience during waiting seasons may be one of the hardest forms of faith. Anyone can trust God when blessings arrive quickly, but it takes spiritual maturity to remain faithful during silence, delay, and uncertainty. It takes wisdom to understand that God's absence from your timeline does not mean His absence from your life. Beloved, some of the greatest mistakes people make come from rushing ahead of God's timing. Rushing into relationships before healing. Rushing into decisions before prayer. Rushing into opportunities before discernment. Haste often creates confusion, but wisdom walks steadily. It understands that what God ordains does not need frantic striving to survive. There is also wisdom in guarding the atmosphere of your soul. Not every voice deserves influence over your life. Some people speak fear constantly. Others speak bitterness, negativity, jealousy, or hopelessness. If you listen too long to discouraging voices, eventually their words begin shaping your thinking. Wisdom chooses carefully what enters the heart. It protects peace. It values truth. It seeks company that strengthens faith rather than weakening it, for the Spirit absorbs what surrounds it repeatedly. This is why time with God matters so deeply. Prayer cleanses the mind from worldly confusion. Scripture renews perspective. Worship softens hardened places within the soul. Quiet moments before God restore clarity lost through constant noise and distraction. And clarity is precious, because life presents countless crossroads. Some decisions appear small, yet shape entire futures. A single conversation, a single compromise, a single act of courage or fear can redirect the course of a life. Wisdom teaches people to seek God not only during major crises, but also within ordinary daily choices. How should I speak today? Where should I go? What should I pursue? What should I release? Who am I becoming through these decisions? These questions matter because character is built gradually through daily obedience. No one becomes wise accidentally. Wisdom grows through humility, prayer, correction, experience, and consistent surrender. Sometimes God teaches wisdom through painful consequences after disobedience. Even then, His mercy remains available. For God does not abandon those who stumble. He restores those willing to return with humble hearts. And what grace there is in knowing mistakes do not disqualify you from God's love. Perhaps you have ignored wisdom before. Perhaps you made choices that wounded your peace. Perhaps you walked down roads you now regret. Still, God invites you back. His mercy is not exhausted by human failure. He can redeem broken paths and teach wisdom through lessons learned painfully. Some of the wisest souls carry scars from seasons when they trusted themselves more than God. Yet those scars become reminders of why obedience matters. Beloved, wisdom is not cold perfection. It is humble dependence upon God. It is waking each morning aware that human understanding alone is insufficient for life's complexities. It is acknowledging your need for divine guidance. It is remaining teachable even after success. It is listening when God convicts your spirit gently about attitudes, habits, or relationships needing change. And obedience is love in motion. It is faith expressed through action, trust expressed through surrender, reverence expressed through daily choices. One day you will look back over your life and realize how many unseen dangers wisdom protected you from, how many heartbreaks obedience prevented, how many blessings arrived because you trusted God enough to follow His leading rather than your impulses. So this morning, beloved, ask God not merely for blessings, but for wisdom worthy of those blessings. Ask Him for discernment sharp enough to recognize truth in a deceptive world. Ask Him for courage to obey even when obedience feels difficult. Ask Him for humility willing to be corrected and guided. For a life surrendered to God's wisdom becomes steady even in uncertain times. And a soul walking in obedience carries within it a peace the world cannot imitate or destroy. May your steps today be guided not by fear, impulse, pride, or pressure, but by the quiet and faithful wisdom of the God who lovingly orders the path of every surrendered heart.